Hello YouTube and hello Ninth Age community. This is Charles with Evershade Gaming, and I have another Ninth Age battle report. This is Ogre Cons versus Sylvan Elves. We're playing a unique scenario, so I'm going to walk through that scenario first, and then we're going to go right into the battle report. I'm going to put the lists in the description of the video. So I pulled this scenario out of the scenario supplement pack. Always like playing a different scenario other than our standard ones we have in our rule book. This one is called Hold the Line, Bravery and Valor, Strength and Movement. So it's a marching columns deployment. And what happens is, so at the end of step 8 of the deployment phase, after rolling for first turn, the player with first turn is declared the attackers, and their opponent is declared the defender. 3 of the defender's units that did not use special deployment may immediately make a flying movement up to 6 inches. They must end their deployment zone fully in. They must end their movement fully inside the deployment zone. The scenario special rule is the charge range rolls made by attacker scoring units are subject to maximized roll, so that's pretty sweet. And then winning the secondary objective in this special scenario is at the end of the game, the player with the most scoring units in the defender's deployment zone up to a maximum of 3 wins the secondary objective. So the idea is for the attacker to get across the field and get their scoring units in the defender's deployment zone, which is determined for who gets to go for first turn. So if you're doing marching columns and after you put your first 3 drops down and then you put everything else down and you decide you're going first, you're going to have your maximized roll, and then your opponent's going to get the opportunity to make a couple flying movements. So I ended up getting to go first. My opponent picked table sides, so I'll show you how that happens when we look at deployment. Spells, on my Shaman, I'm running Thaumaturgy, got Cleansing Fire, Wrath of God, Smite the Unbeliever, and Trial of Faith. I also have the Children of Umi spell from my Magical Heirloom. And my opponent is running Cosmology with his Druid. He's got Altered Sight, Ice and Fire, Perception of Strength, Unity Divergence, and he also has a Hereditary spell from a Magical Heirloom. So, starting off with Marching Columns, as I mentioned previously, my opponent picked table sides. I got to start deploying first, so I put down one of my 3 tribesmen that are just a naked unit, no upgrades. My opponent put down 5 of his fast cavalry from his core. I put down 4 bombardiers, and he responded by putting his 5 thicket shepherds, thicket beasts down. So I decided I wanted a little bit of meat on my side of the table, so I put my rock down. And then we pretty much finished out deployment. So I ended up putting everything down next. Or actually, that's right. My opponent put his big block of rangers down, it looks like, next. And then I finished out with everything else. So once I saw my opponent's rangers down, I kind of knew that's his toughest unit. I can pretty much go forward, do everything else. So I've got my 2 wolves next to my bruiser block, which is 9 bruisers with the Pennant of the Great Grass Sky. I've got my Wizard Master with Thaumaturgy Shaman. I've got my BSB, who's a Horde Master with a 2-up armor save, or 3-up armor save, 2-up with a Iron Fist and a Banner of Speed. And my Great Khan with the Kargadon's Resilience. He's got the Headhunter big name. He's got Kadal's Legacy on a gray weapon, so he's a pretty tough dude that can do a lot of damage. I've got a Scratapult next to that building. I've got my Thunder Cannon on the other side of that building. I've got a Giant behind the hill, and I've got my other unit of 3 tribesmen on my far right flank. So as you can see, my opponent finishes up his deployment. He puts one of his Sentinel units in the ruins with his Wizard Master. He puts his Eagle kind of next to the ruins in front of his block of Dryads. He puts his 12 Sylvan Archers next to them. And then he's got an Eagle King Prince next to the archers between another unit of the core fast cavalry, and he has his other unit of sentinels that he's placing on the far side of the board there. And this is after vanguards and after my opponent's special move. My opponent, I mean, we were sort of playing this scenario for the first time, and he was relatively happy with his deployment. Didn't really feel any need. I want to say he maybe just maybe brought the Thicket beasts over a little bit, since they didn't really need to be so far over from the original. But I don't, he might not even move them all that much. Oh, and that's right. And the Rangers just backed up since he figured, I'm coming to him. He doesn't need to be at the 12-inch mark there. So I know he backed up his Rangers, the flying movement, and then we go into Ogre Con's turn one. So I move up pretty aggressively with everything. No reason to hold anything back here, except my artillery pieces. They're just gonna try and put the hurt on some of these elf units, especially the Scratapult. I'm looking for it to do a lot of work. The cannon less so. There's not as many major targets for the cannon. On the left side of the board, I was able to move my Bombardier 6 so that they could shoot the Thicket beasts. And then I moved up more aggressively on my right. I was able to move the giant so that he has a possible charge against the archers on the hill. It's definitely long, but it's possible, and he's got a reroll. And then, I figured I'd put the pressure with the tribesmen on the right flank too, and they just moved up 12. So Magic ended up not really bringing much of anything to the table. And then going into shooting, Scratapult rolls 2 1s. It's out of the rest of the game, so it's a chariot now. And I want to say my cannon missed too. So, and I know my bombardiers did not really do a lot. So, pretty uneventful Ogre Con's turn one. Going into Sylvan Elves turn one. So my opponent starts moving. He moves these fast cav to be right about there, which I want to say they failed their March block test because the Giants got that 18-inch range and he counts as a musician, so that was great. And other than that, he doesn't really move up all that much. He moved up his fast cavalry on the hill, if anything, just to maybe bait the rock forward. But I know he was considering just blocking and then just sort of moving his Rangers up, but then he decided to be a little bit more hesitant. This is my Flux card. The first turn I got a Flux card 3. My opponent got Flux card 2. He does an Ice and Fire, but he fails it on a 1 and a 2. And then he tries Altered Sight, but he fails that too. And that's pretty much about it for his magic phase. The shooting opens up, and the Sentinels take care of. Actually, no, that's why he moved the fast cav on the hill. He wanted to shoot dog, and he was able to shoot one of the dogs and kill it. So he got rid of one of my pieces of chaff, and then he was thinking I'll just flee. And then over here, the Sentinels on the right shoot. They do 2 wounds to the tribesmen. Or maybe that might be... Oh, that's right. And then the fast cav open up and shoot too. And they kill an ogre. I passed my panic test. Yep. And then the archers put a wound on the giant. And the Sentinels in the ruin put 2 wounds on the rock. So it was definitely I would say a pretty successful turn. Decent amount of shooting. Got rid of a piece of chaff. Yep, here's my... this is going in Ogre Con's turn 2. So at the start of Ogre Con's turn 2, my giant charges the fast cav who flee. And they just sort of pop on the other side of the Sentinels. And they were just within range of my tribesmen to also charge them and push them off the table. So I was able to effectively get rid of them, which was great. And then I redirected with both my giant and my tribesmen into the Sentinels. The Sentinels stand and shot and did, I think, another 2 wounds to the giant. And then on this side of the board, I realized that my bruiser block, which already has Swiss Stride, has an extra instance Swiss Stride now, so I get to roll 4 dice, take the 2 highest. Can see the Dryads, and I want to say it was only like a 16-inch charge, which I think is a 9 for me, so I decided to go for that. And the Rock was far, but I decided also to try and go for that too. And I want to say I also used either the Rock. Yeah, it must have been the Rock must also first charged the Chaff, which I think rolled and just went off the board, it looks like. And then redirected into the Thicket Beasts. The Rock makes it. The Bruiser block makes it into the Dryads. The Giant makes it into the Sentinels. So I was fairly happy turn 2 with making all those charges. Especially the Giant was decently far with a reroll. The Bruiser block was less than it. More, not less than average. It wasn't average. I had better chance than 50% because I had 4 dice, take the 2 highest, and I needed a 9. The Rock was, I think, an 11 or 12 and just happened to roll it too. Also getting that extra instance of Swiss Stride. So the scenario definitely helped all these units make it in here on turn 2, which, as getting an extra instance to maximize will do. Sorry for the blurry pictures, folks. I tried a new camera, and I was definitely taking pictures too fast, I realize now. So this is the rest of my movement in Ogre Khan's turn 2. And then in my magic phase, I put Wrath of the God down between his Rangers and his Sentinels. And then somehow I also get a Children Umi off, too. These are the dice rolls that you can see. I got an 8. My opponent with 3 dice rolled 4. So very lucky, and that ends up being pretty crucial for this combat, too. My cannon rolls 2 1s, too, on turn 2, so this is now a chariot. It's funny, too, because I want to say on one of my previous, or my last battle report with the Ogre Khans against Infernal Dwarves, my opponent one of my viewers commented on the video saying, I don't know why you might want to rethink cannons, you can just roll a 1 and a 1 and not do anything, and then it's a chariot, and Giant's cheaper, and Giants are pretty effective, and I thought, yeah, but I don't know, I like them. Definitely, this game definitely made me think about that. So, going into combat, my Rock does 5 wounds with its impact hits, which was very good. And then my opponent goes, this is his Thicket Shepherd attacking and missing with everything. But the rest of the Thicket Beasts end up putting 3 more wounds on the Rock, brings it up to 5. And I only do 1 more wound with all my attacks. My Rock's got a lance, so I was hoping to do a little bit more to soften this unit up. 2 Thicket Beasts is pretty decent, though. The Giant makes quick work of the Sentinels. He's no problem crushing them. And this is going into this combat here. Again, sorry for the blurry picture. So I don't really roll that crazy, to be honest. Partly, I want to say my impact hits was a big old flub. I want to say I only did, I had a bunch of impact hits, but I only did, I think, 2 or 3 wounds from that. And then another, I did 7 wounds total. My opponent did 5. I had a decent amount of combat res, but my opponent sticks on a very low roll, without his VSB, mind you. Just happens to stick. So at this point, I'm actually in quite of a pickle because I was expecting to break through. I was expecting to be able to just chop this unit down. And unfortunately, with these guys sticking and also me not taking enough wounds, because my opponent rolled great. He rolled really well to hit and to wound, and he did a decent amount of wounds with his attacks, especially because my shaman's got Liger's tongue, so he only had like 10 attacks or something like that, and he did 5 wounds, so that was really impressive, especially with a -1 to wound up. The Rangers can see the bruisers, so I was in a pickle here, and I did the best thing I could, which was sort of position my characters in the best way possible. I actually ended up moving my Great Khan after I took this picture. I realized I wanted him on the flank, my right flank of the unit, so that if the Eagle Boy came in, he could possibly kill him. And I put my Shaman on the left here so that he could both use the Liger's Tongue on the Dryads and on the Rangers when they come in. Thankfully, I still got Children Umi up. That is the lifesaver. Yeah, this is just me showing how I pivoted my giant. He's looking at the Sylvan Archers. And going into Sylvan Elves' turn 2. He brings his Rangers in my flank. He brings his Eagle Boy in my flank. And I'm feeling nervous at this point. I'm hoping that Comet can possibly, that Wrath of the God can possibly come down to not only both reduce the amount of shots from the Sylvan, the Sentinels, but possibly take some attacks out from the Rangers. Because I definitely could use that. That would be very helpful at this point. I was thinking things are going to be very dire. So, my opponent tried or wanted to put Perception of Strength on, I believe, his Sentinels. Or not his Sentinels, his Rangers. I stopped that. He does end up getting Force Embraced off. I want to say he got just the small version. No, I think he got the big version, so I have to reroll my 6s against him. And then he also got a nice and fire off on my giant over here and did 5 wounds, so that was pretty good. Or, sorry, did 4 wounds. And with shooting, he's able to put the giant down. And also with his shooting, he was able to make the tribesmen over here panic and go off the board. So opponent did a good job. He cleared out the right flank this turn. And my Rock can't really last much longer against the Thicket beasts, so he dies this turn. And I forgot to take this a little bit earlier, but at the end of the magic phase, the Wrath of the Comet did not come. The Wrath of the God did not come down, so that was a definite bummer. Even though it definitely could have hurt me, I think it would have been more worthwhile seeing it hurt my opponent. However, the combat goes really well, actually. 2 things I think happened that were quite crucial, or maybe 3 things. The first thing was my opponent issued a duel with his Ranger champion. The first turn, my opponent issued a duel with his Dryad champion, and my Bruiser champion killed the Dryad champion. And this turn, he issued a duel with his Ranger champion. His General Prince is on the top left corner of that Ranger unit in base contact with a Shaman. So I was eager to accept with my Shaman because I figured my Shaman could kill this guy. I would have probably issued a duel just with the General, but I think he wanted to try and really do more damage with him. Because he ends up blocking his General, not being able to put any attacks on the units. So he lost a few attacks there. His Eagle Boy did great. I think the Eagle Boy did 6 wounds, or at least maybe 5. But then my General struck back and killed him. I just rolled really well. I don't really feel like I should kill him in 1 round, but I hit with like 4 attacks, wounded with all those, and my opponent only made, I think, 1 Aegis save at that point. So, yeah, killing the Eagle Boy was, I think, very fortunate. And this round, the Dryads just definitely don't hit as hard, and we hit decently hard back against them. And as you can still see, I was still able to kill some Rangers too. Kill 3 Rangers, kill a whole stack of Dryads, we end up, I want to say, only losing by 1 and just able to stick around on the 8 with a reroll. So very fortunate here. And I think just a little bit of just a mistake on my opponent's part of maybe issuing the duel with his champion from his Rangers, and really lucky rolling on my part with, see, the Great Khan, and just I think the Bruisers rolled so much better this round than they did last round. So I want to say my BSB himself killed like 3 Dryads, which was great. So my opponent reforms with his Rangers because I actually have a chariot that's going to be coming in, and the Dryads can't really do anything, and I was kind of okay with my general just attacking Dryads. So yeah, really surprising. So Ogre Khan's turn 3, the chariot, the Scratapult charges in the flank of the Forest Rangers. Pretty much not a ton more movement. The cannon's crawling forward as fast as it can, and the bombardiers are sort of sitting back. They need to do some movements. They Thicket beast because the tribesmen and the bombardiers cannot take those thick beasts on their own. They're too tough. I've got 1 wolf left that's just hiding on the hill because there's not really anything to chaff at this point. My opponent's got his eagle too that also doesn't really have anything to chaff. So they're both sort of hanging out around the hill. I'm able to get Children Umi off. I tried getting Trial of Faith down, but that would not go off. And the Wrath of God did not come down this turn either. So now it's up to 3 counters. So, yeah. I was sort of like, it would be even better. It would be even great this round. I'm like, his Sentinels still aren't that far away, and his Rangers aren't that far away. The Rangers are still a big threat. They still got a lot of attacks. He's at this point, he's pretty much, obligated to either not issue a duel or I'd say, I'm probably going to issue a duel with my Shaman again, actually, because my Shaman was able to kill his Forest Ranger. And combat actually goes... I would say it goes well. So that green model with the banner is my BSB, for anyone wondering. I still need to figure out what my Ogre Khan BSB is going to be. So we lose the rest of the tribesmen to the attacks from the Dryads and the Forest Rangers. But overall, combat still goes well. We still win it. The Forest Rangers are steadfast, so they have no problem sticking. But the Dryads are not, because we were able to knock them down to 4 models. They end up breaking from combat and fleeing, and they also break the Sentinels with the Wizard Master, and they fly off the board. So very big turn right there, getting rid of my opponent's magic and getting rid of that poison shooting unit. So this is, and then at this point, how my characters are able just to face the Rangers, which... the Shaman is in a duel with his Forest Prince, so we're sitting and looking in a great place. I want to say the Dryads only fleet as you can see in this picture, they only fleet a few inches, but it was enough to cause a panic test for those Sentinels and that Wizard Master. They flee again, but not quite off the board. And then in Sylvan Elf turn 3, we're able to clean up the rest of the Forest Rangers. It's just too many attacks and too many stomps, and we run them down with a chariot. I want to say the characters pursued 2, but they went a lot less farther. And now we are just sort of looking to kind of go get those Thicket beasts. Currently, my opponent is still winning the objective because he's got his 2 scorn units. I need to get rid of these Thicket beasts and get my Bombardiers and my Tribesmen into his deployment zone. So, this is Ogre Khan's turn 4. I move up, I pretty much march with the Bombardiers and march with the Tribesmen, and I actually charge my Wolf into his Eagle, and I move up the Thunder Cannon. And I also kind of move the chariot so that it's got a charge next turn against the Thicket beasts. I kind of put a bunch of buffs on the wolf, or I put Smite the Unbeliever on the eagle. I reduce its resilience, and then I put Cleansing Fire on the dog. I give it a strength 3 breath weapon. And I also get to try the Faith off with 3 dice. It's really bad dice on my opponent's part throughout a lot of this game. As you can see there, I get this off by 1. It only does 1 wound to the Thicket Shepherd, so that's not too consequential. The dog kills the eagle in the challenge, which was great. And then Sylvan Elves turn 4. These guys charge. And the Dryads run off the board. The tribesmen actually only take a few wounds, as you can see. This is going into Ogre Khan's turn 5. And they're able to rally the next turn. The Thicket Beasts went after the tribesmen, but neither pursued very far. So the chariot and the characters all come into contact with the Thicket Beasts and the Thicket Shepherd unit. The cannon is able to make a long charge in the archers, and he just plows through them, so that was very fortunate. And then just going into this combat, we got Children Umi off. I want to say we issued a duel. I want to say my Great Khan issued a duel, and his champion accepted it, and I killed the champion. And then otherwise, there's still... I think we put a couple wounds on his Thicket Shepherd, and he's still stubborn, so he stays around, even though we won combat. And then the next turn, I'm able to force off Smite the Unbelievers, either Smite or Children Umi. And we kill the Thicket Beasts at the end of the game, and voila, we get our scoring units into the deployment zone. So this ends up being a pretty overwhelming... I don't know about overwhelming, but a pretty solid Ogre Khan's victory. After the points are tallied up, this game ends up being a 19-1 Ogre Khan's victory. With all those characters alive at the end of the game, they are huge chunk points. Pretty much the main bulk. I mean, a decent amount. It's about 500 plus points of shooting, and then the tribesmen 6 are 155. So they're pretty cheap. But yeah, very surprising, but incredible Ogre Khan's win here. They pulled it out in that combat against the Dryads and the Rangers. I definitely thought I was done for when I got flanked by those Rangers. But again, I think there's just a couple small mistakes by my opponent, and just some hot dice on my part. I feel like my opponent's turn on shooting was all pretty good, but other than that, man, his dice, especially in the magic phase, were just dismal. And I felt overall during the game, I just had some pretty hot dice there, as you can see, rolling out of that combat, and then being able to get into those Thicket Beasts and being able to pretty much wrap up the game by clearing the board of all those pesky woodies. So, everyone, thank you for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe as usual, and I'll be seeing you all again with another 9th Age Battle Report.